Welcome to the 𝐿𝐼𝑛𝑔𝐻 English.
Today, we're heading up into the clouds. We're taking a seriously immersive look at the highest peak of the outer Himalayas, the Churdhar trek. If you're a nature junkie, or just a focused learner trying to figure out what makes this massive mountain so magnetically appealing, well, you're in the right spot. Let's get right into it.
Right off the bat, we got to talk about the name. The locals lovingly call it Churdeshwar. That translates to Silver Bangle Mountain or Moonlit Mountain. And honestly, it makes total sense. From a distance, that snow-capped peak looks exactly like a bright silver bangle just kind of glistening under the sun and moon. It's incredibly poetic, right? And instantly makes you wonder what kind of magic is hiding up there at the top. Okay, let's dive into this number, 11,965. That is the altitude in feet, or roughly 3,647 meters that you're dealing with here. I really want that number to just anchor the sheer, daunting scale of this trek in your mind. We're not talking about a leisurely Sunday stroll in the park. You are ascending the absolute zenith of Himachal Pradesh's Shivalik ranges. It's a beast.
Section 1. The Call of Churdhar, Myth, Majesty, and the Mountains.
So why does this specific mountain pull people in so powerfully? You've got city folks from places like Delhi literally packing their bags overnight, just desperate to escape the concrete and get into nature. They're looking for something bigger than themselves, and what they find there is totally wrapped up in local mythology. Legend has it, this is the very peak where Lord Hanuman searched for the life-saving Sanjeevani booty. Plus, the mountain is named after Churu, a fiercely loyal servant who defended the kingdom for the local deity Sri Shorgal Maharaj, who is said to actually reside right at the peak. These aren't just dry historical footnotes, they're the magical elements that give every single lush green trail up there a really distinct divine aura.
Section 2. Choosing your path. Every great quest begins with a choice.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the trekkers actually face two completely different ways up. On one hand, you have the Nohradhar route. This one is 18 kilometers of moderate inclines winding through these beautifully scenic forests. It's highly popular and for good reason. On the other hand, there's the Sarain route. At just 8 kilometers, it looks like an awesome shortcut, but do not fall for it. It is a brutal, breathless, ridiculously steep incline that will literally test every single muscle in your legs. Basically, you have to decide what kind of hero you want to be on this journey.
Section 3. The Ascent and Challenges. The Road of Trials.
So once you've picked your route, the real physical work kicks in. You plunge straight into a wild, dense ecosystem. Let's map it out step by step. First, you leave base camp and almost immediately enter these impossibly thick deodar and pine forests. You're hiking for hours until you hit the Gujjar huts and the famous Teesri Camp. That camp is a crucial resting point where even the simplest fire-cooked food, like soya chunks and rice, tastes like a 5-star meal because you are just so hungry. Finally, you push past the tree line into the barren, rocky summit traverse.
Trekkers talk about this forest phase with just absolute awe. One account described how the majestic trees stood tall and proud, like sentinels guarding a magical territory. And it's true. When you're deep in that emerald wonderland, walking on a springy carpet of dead leaves, listening to the oak branches rustling and the birds singing, it literally feels like you've stepped out of normal reality and straight into a fantasy novel.
And hey, in this magical territory, you're never really alone. This is honestly one of my favorite details. There are these unofficial mountain guides, friendly local dogs. You might see a huge, beautiful Saint Bernard or maybe a super loyal black dog that everyone affectionately calls Bhairav. They just spontaneously adopt trekking groups. They confidently lead the way through the snaking, confusing trails, patiently stopping to let us humans catch our breath. They are the true guardians of the trek.
But as magical as the dogs and the trees are, the physical realities of the climb are going to catch up with you. Your exhaustion levels will skyrocket. Up at that altitude, water becomes the ultimate nectar of the mountains. The sources repeatedly hammer this home. Hydration is totally non-negotiable, especially since water sources dry up completely in those final grueling stretches. Let's see how this builds, because if the incline doesn't drain you, the Shivaliks have a few other tricks up their sleeve. The weather here? Infamously unpredictable. You can be sweating in the bright sun one second and caught in a sudden, freezing rainstorm the next. Those dry, dusty trails instantly become slushy, slippery, boulder-studded traps. Add in the severe fatigue and the fact that altitude sickness often kicks in once you cross 10,000 feet, and man, your body is undergoing an extreme stress test.
But you know, humanity always seems to shine brightest when things get tough. There's this one incredible account from a trekker who reached the top during a freezing downpour on a really crowded weekend. Thousands of pilgrims were stranded. And right in the middle of that chaos, a temple priest personally made sure people were sheltered in a packed dormitory. He was walking around, generously handing out extra blankets to shivering strangers. It's just a profound, beautiful highlight of the deep warmth and hospitality you find high up in these mountains.
Section 4. The Spiritual Summit. The Supreme Reward.
Breaking through that dense tree line, fighting through the slush and the absolute burning in your lungs, you finally arrive. As you get close to the top, the heavy silence of the forest vanishes. Instead, it's replaced by these powerful, echoing chants of Har Har Mahadev, ringing off the steep rocks. You'll see hundreds of pilgrims, some of them trekking entirely barefoot, which is just mind-blowing, pushing through unimaginable pain purely on faith and devotion. The atmosphere up there, it is absolutely electrifying.
Right at the zenith sits the beating spiritual core of the mountain, the ancient Sri Shirgol Maharaj Temple, alongside a colossal, towering statue of Lord Shiva sitting peacefully in meditation. Reaching this point is this deeply emotional, profoundly religious experience for so many. Honestly, all the physical pain of the brutal climb just kind of melts away the second you lay eyes on that sacred space. And this brilliantly illustrates the other supreme reward of reaching the top. From this 11,965-foot vantage point, you get these unbelievable 360-degree panoramas. On a clear day, your jaw will hit the floor. You're gazing out at the greatest peaks of the Himalayas, Kinnar Kailash, Srikhand Mahadev, Kedarnath, and Badrinath. It is literally an ocean of snow-capped giants spread out right in front of you.
Section 5. Practical Preparation Guide, Equipping the Hero. Okay, so if you're thinking about answering the call of this mountain, you've got to equip yourself properly. First things first, timing is everything. The ideal windows for trekking are April to June, where you're treated to clear skies and these vibrant spring wildflowers, and then again from September to November, which gives you those crisp post-monsoon views of the snowy summits. Attempting this trek in the dead of winter? Bad idea. It's incredibly dangerous due to heavy, obstructing snowfall. Definitely stick to those safer windows. Next up is your essential quest inventory. Listen, this mountain is entirely unforgiving if you show up unprepared. You absolutely need sturdy trekking shoes with great grip, plus trekking poles to save your knees on those steep descents. Pack warm layers and solid rain gear because, remember those sudden storms we talked about? Crucial. Bring at least 2 liters of water, a first aid kit stocked with altitude pain relievers, and plenty of high-energy snacks to keep your fuel levels up when the exhaustion hits hard.
Also, keep in mind that you are a guest in a 56-square-kilometer wildlife sanctuary. The wild locals here include the stunning Himalayan monal bird, barking deer, langurs, and, yes, the Himalayan black bear. The source materials heavily advise that you should always trek in groups. It is a completely untamed environment, and respecting the wildlife is an absolute must.
So the crucial point here is a really powerful message straight from the trekking community. If you can carry a heavy, full plastic bottle all the way up the mountain, you can certainly carry a weightless, empty one back down. The ecology here is super fragile. Leaving no trace isn't just a suggestion, it's a responsibility, so we can protect this pristine, sacred environment for future generations.
So, want to hike where gods literally fought demons? If you're looking to experience a Himalayan journey that perfectly blends intense, ancient mythology with some seriously rigorous high-altitude adventure, you've got to hear this. Imagine stepping onto a trail where every single rock and ridge is steeped in legends of divine battles, and where the physical challenge of the climb is matched only by the spiritual weight of the landscape. Welcome to this explainer on the incredible Churdhar trek. Today, we're unpacking the secrets of a truly unique destination. If you're on the hunt for a spiritually charged weekend getaway, especially if you're coming from Delhi or Chandigarh, well, you are in the right place. We're going to take a deep dive into the highest peak in the Sirmar district of Himachal Pradesh to figure out exactly what makes this mountain so magnetically appealing to thousands of trekkers and pilgrims every single year. All right, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, we'll cover the legend of Churdhar. Then we'll look at the Moonlit Mountain itself. After that, we'll break down the 3-day trek, talk about weather and seasons, and finally, wrap up with essential gear and costs.
Let's kick things off with part 1, the legend of Churdhar.
According to local lore, 𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐿𝐴's epic journey actually kicks off when he travels all the way from the holy city of Haridwar. And why did he make the trip? Well, he heard the desperate prayers of the local villagers in Sirmoor. When he arrived, he found this powerful trickster demon who had completely enslaved the people and was just terrorizing the whole region. Armed with divine weapons and blessings straight from Lord Shiva, 𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐿𝐴 took on this beast in a massive, fierce battle, slayed the demon, and finally restored peace. And for his final act, he didn't just pack up and leave. He actually chose the highest mountain in the region to be his eternal, sacred home so he could act as a guardian over the people forever. When you're hiking this trail, that's the protector you're walking toward. Moving right along to Section 2, the Moonlit Mountain. You know, the name Churdhar literally breaks down into chor, which means head, and dar, meaning ridge. It's this perfect metaphor for 𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐿𝐴 sitting right up at the very top, keeping watch over the land below. But what's really cool is that the locals have an even more poetic name for it. They call it Chur Chandani, which translates to the Moonlit Mountain. It just gives you this incredibly powerful sense of the atmosphere waiting for you up there. It's fierce in its history, sure, but absolutely serene in its physical presence. Now, 12,000. That is your target altitude in feet. Sitting at exactly 3,647 meters, so yeah, roughly 12,000 feet, Churdhar is actually the highest peak in the outer Himalayas. So make no mistake, this isn't just some casual walk in the park. This is a significant elevation that takes you way above the tree line and straight into the domain of the clouds. So, you might be wondering, what's the payoff for dragging yourself up to 12,000 feet? Well, on a clear, bright day, the summit delivers these jaw-dropping panoramic views that are honestly just unparalleled in the area. You're not just looking at the Daladar Range and the Greater Himalayas, you are looking right at massive legendary peaks over in Uttarakhand. We're talking Swarga Rohini, Bunder Punch, and even the deeply sacred peaks of Kedarnath and Badrinath, and some of those tower over 7,000 meters high. That is the epic reward waiting for anyone who pushes all the way to the top. Which brings us to Section 3, the 3-day trek. Let's walk through this 3-day itinerary step by step, just so you know exactly what kind of physical challenges to expect. Most trekkers start from the Sirmoor area at a place called Nohradhar. Step 1. On your first day is the hike from the Nohradhar market up to the base camp. It's about a 6 to 7 kilometer trek that kicks off pretty muddy before you enter this gorgeous woodland area, and that's where you'll spend your first night. Then, Step 2 is the big one, Summit Day. This is a rigorous 14-kilometer round-trip hike. You'll climb up to the ancient Deodar roofed temple of Lord 𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐿𝐴, hit the peak to soak in those insane vistas, and then head back down to base camp. Finally, Step 3 on day 3 is a nice, breezy 6-kilometer descent straight back to Nohradhar. But hold on a second, let me give you a quick heads up here. While that itinerary might sound straightforward, you absolutely need to prepare for moderate to strenuous difficulty. The very first hour of the trek alone is notorious for being tough, with some really steep, rocky slopes. But the true test, that hits at a spot called Teesri, sitting at about 3,250 meters. This is where the tree line begins to vanish, and it is hands down the windiest part of the entire trek. You're going to have to dig deep, manage your energy, and push right through those fierce winds for the final 2 kilometers up to the temple and the summit. All right, let's talk about Section 4, weather and seasons. Timing is basically everything for this trip. The absolute ideal windows for the Churdhar trek are definitively spring, so April to June, and autumn, from September to November. During those sweet spots, you're getting clear skies, really pleasant daytime temps ranging from 15 to 25 degrees Celsius, vibrant foliage, and most importantly, trails that are actually safe and firm. Contrast that with winter from December to February. Honestly, it's a whole different beast. We're talking freezing temperatures, heavy snowfall, and super unpredictable conditions. It actually gets so hazardous that the local administration usually just shuts the trail down completely. So do yourself a huge favor and stick to the mild conditions of spring and autumn to guarantee a smart, safe trip. And finally, Section 5 is essential gear and costs. So how do you actually get to the starting line? Well, your first objective is to reach the town of Solan. You can fly into Chandigarh, take a scenic train ride to 𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐿𝐴, or just catch a bus or drive, and then connect straight to Solan. Once you're there, Step 2 is getting to the Nohradhar base. It's a 70-kilometer journey by road, taking roughly 3 to 4 hours. And the really great thing is, starting right at 8 a.m., there are private buses running from Solan to Nohradhar every 40 minutes. Or, you can just easily hire a taxi. It's incredibly accessible. Now, for a multi-day, high-altitude Himalayan adventure, the Churdhar trek is actually surprisingly affordable. Depending on whether you decide to go totally independent or book a guided package, the total cost usually lands between just 3,000 to 7,000 Indian rupees. And yeah, believe it or not, that typically covers your camping permits, your food, and your tent accommodations for both nights on the mountain. Since the costs won't break the bank, let's rapid fire through what you actually need to pack. First up, you absolutely must have high-quality, waterproof trekking shoes with a rock-solid grip for those steep inclines. You also need warm, layered clothing. Even if it's a beautiful 25 degrees during the day, remember that temperatures nosedive at night, often dropping right down near 0 degrees Celsius. Make sure to pack a durable rain jacket or poncho, because mountain weather can literally change in the blink of an eye. Toss in a basic medical and emergency kit, reusable water bottles, plenty of high-energy snacks to keep you fueled, and of course, a camera with extra batteries. Trust me, you'll be kicking yourself if your phone dies right before you can snap a picture of those summit views. Oh, and I just have to throw in this fantastic little fact to add one last dash of wild adventure to your prep. The Churdhar region is actually a designated wildlife sanctuary. So as you're hiking through those beautiful woodlands, keep your eyes peeled. The area is home to some incredible wildlife, like Himalayan black bears, elusive leopards, and barking deer. It is just a brilliant reminder that out there, you are a guest in a totally untamed ancient ecosystem. So we've covered the legend of a god battling a demon, the stunning vistas of a 12,000-foot moonlit peak, the intense physical challenge of those fierce Teesri winds, and exactly how to pack and plan for the journey. You've got all the essential info mapped out right here. The only thing left to ask is, are you ready to answer the mountain's call? Start prepping your gear, pick your season, and get ready for the hike of a lifetime.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with one final thought. We've seen the steep, brutal trials, the wild, enchanting forests, and the profoundly magical summit waiting at the very top. So the only thing left to ask is, do you have the stamina and the spirit to answer the call of the Silver Bengal Mountain? Start planning your adventure, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.